If there is only one thing you need to learn and understand about Magna Carta 1215, it's this. Magna Carta 1215 is the sole peaceful means known to humankind by which the rights of the weakest, most innocent citizens can prevail over a massive, potentially corrupt and oppressive state power. This is the voice of freedom, Magna Carta 1215 Learning Centre. Welcome to your next lesson with hosts Fitzroy and Carl.
Oh, except right now it's just me. I don't know that Fitz got the message, but well, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. If not, it'll just be a nice quiet chat with you, me, and a few other friends that happen to pop by until Fitz joins us this evening. I'm just having a bit of a look here to see. He has a spectacular presentation for us tonight, and we are going to be speaking about, of all things, sovereigns and citizens, and why you can't have the two together. Now, you know, we would love the idea of being able to make up new words and ascribe definition to them, but, well, we're not quite going to do that in this show. Of course, you'll understand why when Fitz comes on board. I'll just remove that for the minute because we do have quite a PowerPoint presentation and quite a number of videos that we're going to go through tonight. So I guess by way of introduction to all of this, we should talk about a little bit about what's been going on in the last week or so. And I'm looking a bit distracted, folks. That's because there's only me and I've got machines everywhere telling me different bits and pieces. So I'm just trying to keep up with what's going on. And Ray's Fitz, he doesn't seem to want to talk to me. But yeah, so sovereigns and citizens have been making big news recently. Now, if you were around in my last little live a few minutes ago, you would have found out that Cookie from Cook or Watch had been in there, and I invited her to come into tonight's show and see whether or not she could learn something. Unfortunately, it seems that the email address that I was given for her has been removed. So I can no longer get emails to her, which is a bit sad. Anyway, doesn't look like Cookie will be joining us tonight to learn the true definition of the word sovereign and the true definition of the word citizen. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Ben Fordham and his use of sovereign citizen in his recent attacks. Now, I heard yesterday somebody sent me a text, I believe, while we were on the road, saying that Ben Fordham was attacking the freedom movement all over again. G'day, Ben. Haven't said hello to everybody who's in there. Michelle, Steve, Margot's in there, Danielle. Scott's in there too. And there's a question. Yeah, well, I guess we do. I'll leave that up. Sorry, beg your pardon. I guess we do. I haven't been told we don't. I still believe in Bosie, what he stands for. And I believe that he probably is the only bloke in this country to do what needs to be done. I can't see anybody else. I can't offer anybody else up that in his place. Does that mean I always agree with everything he says, does, or believes? No, not everything he says, does, or believes do I believe in. Guarantee that. However, I find a lot of what he says very difficult to argue with. So let's be clear on that. The 2% tax, get rid of income tax, and the 2%, which I believe is a new goods tax, and Australia will survive and survive handsomely on a 2% goods tax. Now, there'll be surplus, a lot of surplus that could be used for great humanitarian projects, which I fully believe the Bosies are involved with and want built. Do I believe Ricardo wants to be the Prime Minister of this country? I think if it was foisted upon him, he'd take it for whatever period it was decided or required. Now, does that mean he's going to run a party in the system? I would see it very difficult. I would see a very difficult path given everything he's had to say about parties. I think and his belief in the Constitution. We all know the Constitution said what the Constitution says about parties. So if that is the case, then no, I would be very surprised if he ran as a party. I think what he and Dave Graham are doing in the New South Wales state election, which I believe is being held in March, they're running in the upper house. Now, I think that's really clever. It's really, really smart, because everybody then in New South Wales can vote for either or both. If that's the way that it works out, you can give your preference vote if you like. You vote one for one and two for the other, and follow whatever preferences that the ticket decides they're going to come up with. My understanding is, and I'm no mathematician, so don't hold me to these numbers, but since their announcement, I've run the numbers through my head, and I've just seen this. I'm going to have to flag that and come back to that. Flag the numbers. So let's have a look. Let's say I think there's about roughly 8 million people in New South Wales. To gain a seat in the upper house, they need 4.5% of the vote. Not they, either one of them needs 4.5% of the vote. If my understanding of it is, let's say Ricardo got 5% of the vote and Dave got 4% of the vote, then my understanding is that Ricardo can give 0.5% to Dave, can nominate that to Dave, bringing his vote up to 4.5%, and that would give them both a seat in the upper house of the New South Wales Parliament. So the first mark to hit New South Wales is, hello, Veronique. The first mark for New South Wales to hit is 4.5%. That will get one of them elected, Bosie or Dave Graham. The next mark is another 4.5%. So all up, we're looking at 9% of New South Wales. So roughly figuring it out at 8 million people, 10% of that would be 800,000. 9% of that would be somewhere around 750, 720. Well, let's say somewhere between 650 and 750,000. So are there 600 to 700,000 votes available to them? Is there that level of support just in New South Wales? I think they've probably got a pretty fair chance. But it's a big ask. So I'm not exactly sure how far out from the election we are, but let's say it's 8 weeks, 8 or 9 weeks. I think it's due in March at some stage. So let's say it's 8 or 9 weeks. Let's toss around a few figures, as I was today with the Galactic Larrikins. And we said, righto, well, we can pretty much guarantee we think 50,000 people, we reckon there's a lay-down misère that will vote for them straight away off the top. So that still leaves somewhere between 600,000 and 700,000 that they have to find, which is about 100,000 people a week they have to try and convince to vote for them. Okay? I think that there is every opportunity to do that. How are they going to do it? I have no idea. Not part of the campaign. And if I know anything about Ricardo and Dave, it will be a very tightly held secret exactly what they're going to do. So, and I think that's the way with all political campaigns. I don't think that there's anything untoward with that at all. Yes, Ricardo will be going, I'm pretty sure, as an independent. Both he and Dave will run as independents, not under A1 at all, once again, because it's a party thing. Why bring up the party conversation when they don't have to? It makes perfect sense to me. So, yeah, that's the deal with that. So am I still working with Ricardo? Well, I was never working with Ricardo. I was never working with Ricardo. I simply had a channel that he would come on and talk on when he ordained to come on and talk. G'day, Melissa. That was about the extent of that, and nothing further. Steve, what have you got here? Guru is after bend over Fordham. Yeah, well, I don't know what Guru's plan is there. Ben, on the other hand, I know what Ben's plan is. because I know how they'll play this. Does Guru really need to go and attack Ben Fordham? Probably not. There's no real need. And now he needs to focus on the wider audience. So to just keep narrowing down on just one guy is only going to get a little weird. And Guru's appearance on B105 the other day, and when Fitz gets on, we'll probably wind up talking about it. The first words out of his mouth were Fitz's definitions of sovereign and citizen. Now, you don't get better definitions. Please, if you do find them, let us know. But at this point in time, you don't get better definitions than that. Now, did the announcers at B105 actually understand what was being said there? Well, of that, I'm not 100% sure. Really not 100% sure. But what he did was get the message out there. People will have been asking questions now, or they will be going out and doing their own research. They'll be trying to find out a little bit more information, or some of them won't. That's the nature of the game. Some of them would have found that interview far too highbrow for them, too much talk on their radio station. And can you get back to the next, top 10 bubblegum chewing hit, please? That'll be a lot of what the audience thought about that. However, it is a landmark, I suppose, in the movement that he was able to get on free-to-air radio. And I think he did pretty well. I think that the editing, I don't know exactly what they took out. They did say that they had to remove stuff due to code of practice violations. Well, I don't know what their code of practices are at the moment. I used to know them off by heart when I worked with them because I worked for the same network that B105 is part of. Those code of practices usually get updated every 12 months or so. There's a core group to them. And I think we've discussed them before. It's for basically the same reasons that he will never, unless there is a significant change with Ben Fordham at 2GB, he will never get on there because there are license restrictions placed upon people who they deem might say something that risks their license. Now, they're using, and I think this is about the weakest excuse that can be used, but they're using the excuse of a portion of a speech that they've seen from Dave out in front of Parliament House about a year ago. They've selectively edited, as they are wont to do, that speech and have taken just the last part of it where he says he'd like to see the whole place blown up and turned into a 9/11 monument, talking about Parliament House. Now, if you actually listen to the entire statement, and there is something at the beginning of that statement that makes a big difference to the whole context of that sentence. But the mainstream media won't play that to you because it doesn't play into their narrative. And the narrative they want is that he's a dangerous man, that he's, a homegrown terrorist, could be a threat. And that is the excuse they're going to use for as long as humanly possible to keep him off the air. No amount of goading Ben Fordham is going to help. Just not going to help. This is, believe it or not, I believe Ben has been pretty gutless in what he's doing, because what most people don't know, and certainly Guru doesn't know, is that I've spoken to Ben Fordham. We had a long and I thought very good conversation, and we discussed these issues from a perspective of broadcasters. Now, it was a good conversation. I have nothing bad to say about Ben. I would hope he has nothing bad to say about me. And maybe if he hasn't brought me up in the last week, that's because he'd find it's a fight he doesn't want to pick with me. We had a conversation about what we could talk about. He made an offer at the end of it that the only way he could talk to me about any of the things that we'd discussed would be in a podcast. And I said, well, I'm happy to come and do a podcast with you, Ben. Oh, well, we'd have to be pre-recorded. And I said, well, I've been pre-recording and editing interviews since 1984, 83. So I started editing interviews with a razor blade and block. So I know all about editing. That's not a problem. And I'd be recording it at my end, I told him. So it doesn't matter what you cut out. I'll play the whole lot, beginning to end. He seemed to think that would be okay. He went away to have a think about it. I haven't heard a word about him since. Now, we discussed 3 very serious points that should we ever come together and talk, he would want to have some basic knowledge of. The first of those points was sovereign and citizen, and how he needs to learn the difference between the two. I hoped he would go off and try and find the definition himself. It seems he hasn't bothered. So I have sent it to him. Fitz's definitions, the one Guru used in the B105 interview. Whether or not he reads them, I don't know. Whether or not he does anything about them, I don't know. But trust me when I tell you that 2GB aren't talking to Guru because they're going to use that really weak excuse. And they're not going to talk to me for a whole different reason. Because they understand where I'm going to come from with this. And I'm going to ask them some questions, as I did Ben the other day, that he's finding very difficult to answer. So I don't think they're going to give me a go. They're going to give anybody until they find someone they can pay, coerce, or is being paid to be a divisive element, which leads me into where Cooker came from. So it's not an easy thing to get a hold of the number 2 breakfast program in the country. You might think it's pretty easy to ring in on one of the talk lines, and I think Dave proved that that isn't quite as easy as people may have thought. And there are ways and means of doing it, but they will only look at your programming if there is benefit to them in some way, shape or form, or if it's making big news somewhere. Now, Cooker had never made big news, and certainly wasn't that day. And yet all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this nothing tweet channel and twerk channel with some anonymous girl, as it turns out, driving it all, is doing a 10-minute spot prime time in Breakfast Sydney radio. So the questions in my mind arise, how did you get that? Who do you know? It's quite possible that there are members of Ben's team that are twitchers, twerkers, whatever they are. You know, it's quite possible. But it's interesting because how did it come up to be a topic that day? How did it come up to be a topic? Because there was nothing really to trigger that topic that day. Interesting things it will be. All right, well, I'm still sitting here waiting for Fitz to turn up. Let me see whether or not I can send him any kind of a message. Okay, I can't talk and type at the same time. Right. Hopefully, he will be joining us shortly. And if that's not the case, then I guess we're going to wind up doing another Magna Carta show on another night. I don't know how else I can do it because I don't want to go and blow all these powder in one go. But I can tell you that you will be left in no doubt tonight after the lesson about sovereign and citizen. And can I tell you that these are definitions you want to learn. You want to memorize these definitions because when somebody challenges you on it, you have to be able to have this stuff roll straight off your tongue, so to speak. So yeah, you want to be having a look at that. Oh, I see. There's a bit of Albanese chat. Yeah. So Albo came out, told us that the Queensland Police murdered people. Those people that were murdered out west of Toowoomba there back in December. Albo came out twice in the same speech and said that the police shot them, murdered them. he sounded quite sympathetic about it all. It's quite weird. So we'll need to talk about that. Yes, AC was at the QVB yesterday. Interesting. How did he get to the QVB? Under what pretenses? Was he teasing the police? Is he running under another country's passport, which allows him out? I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, Fitz has finally arrived, 25 minutes late, but he's only probably just got the message. How are you, brother?
G'day, Carl. G'day, everybody. How are we doing this evening?
Mate, sent you lots of messages, sent you lots of phone calls, and sorry, had to start early without you because I've got things I have to be at tonight. So let's not hold this up. Let's get into it straight away.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, let's go.
All right, so what do you want first up, the PowerPoint?
I'm not sure. I think I would have sent you. I haven't had time to organise myself. I've just come in. So I think I would have sent you the list of things we're doing first. So if you've got that in front of you, I'm just trying to find that now.
Right, give me a second. Let's see what I can find here. Okay, so let me just read what it's all about tonight. Delivering the bombshell that uncovers why people calling themselves truth warriors using promissory notes, UCC, ecclesiastical trust, equity law, etc., to win freedom are branded as sovereign citizens, make themselves targets for a special set of punishments that are set back freedom for all. And tonight we'll also discuss how the 1215 Magna Carta is an antidote to the globalist agenda for all Commonwealth nations and the trigger for the remainder of the nations on this planet to follow. Now, revisiting the sovereign citizen hit pieces that have been put out recently by the corporate media will show evidence that the term sovereign citizen is code for domestic terrorist, and it's a tactic to garner public support for state-sanctioned violence against people who stand on principle. Now, decoding and the control language, which is what we all need to learn how to do, the audio-visual mouthpiece of the Dark Priest class, and it utilizes a program that, well, it just takes control of the masses, revealing the truth that's concealed with the messaging in their secret religious order and their ancient superstition is sworn to uphold. A clear and succinct explanation of how the people's freedoms have been surrendered through the population's sincere belief and devotion to the legitimacy of the distorted system that has been superimposed by stealth due to the concealment of critical knowledge of the clear set of standards that judges the limits of the government. So
I think we're going straight into that article. Can you see the link?
We
for the
are.
article?
So let me just share that article up. Oops. I'm going to need to stop that share and bring up this one. Beg your pardon. That one right there. Oh, no, that's not it. Wait a minute. God, get myself all up. It's a Channel 9 thing, isn't it? It's the one beside it. Sorry about this, folks. Okay, this one. So we want to scroll down here a little bit. Just below the Treasury Department, I think you wanted. Just above the Treasury image. Righto, there we go. So it'll be this bit here. What do sovereign citizens believe? Is that what we're chasing? Oh, have I lost Fitz? Can't hear you, Fitz.
Sorry, I just... Okay, so if you just scroll to just above the image of the Treasury building, it should start there talking about the redemption movement.
Oh, yeah. One prevalent thought is redemption theory, which asserts the US, which is where the movement began, went bankrupt in 1933 when it abandoned the gold standard. It claims the government then began using its citizens as collateral in agreements with other nations.
Yeah, so if you keep scrolling down below there, there's a little bit more on that. So they're actually telling you what they've done, but they're making it look like that's just a fantasy. So this is how they do it. But they're actually telling you in full view.
Redemption theorists go on to claim each person, therefore, has a monetary value, up to millions of dollars, stored in a secret US Treasury Department account listed under someone else's name. Some followers will also avoid entering into contracts with the government. It's why many of them are pulled over for driving without a license or vehicle registration, or for just failing to produce such documents or provide their name and address when pulled over, and why you'll hear phrases like "I do not consent" during exchanges between sovereign citizens and police officers.
So just going to pause it there, Carl. I don't want to go too much further into that. Now we've got a couple of videos that I've lined up. And you know how they always tell you in their movies of what they're doing and what the truth is. So these two videos are really, really a great way to actually see how they've been messaging us the true nature of what they've been doing. Except we've just been thinking it's just fantasy because it's just in a movie, right? So it's a really good one. The first one's a situation where there's homeschool versus state schooling, and it really shows the difference between kids who are schooled by the state, and that's why they want you schooled by the state, versus to ones who are taught independently, the difference of their knowledge level. So I'm hoping you can rack that one up and we can see it.
They're children. They need to go to school. They need to learn about the world.
Justin, Jackson, would you please come down here for a second?
What?
How old are you now, Jackson?
13.
Can you tell me what the Bill of Rights is?
What something costs, I guess.
It's a good guess. Justin, you're in high school?
Yeah.
Do you like your school?
It's whatever.
Do you know what the Bill of Rights is?
It's a government thing, right? Like rights that people have in America and stuff.
Yep. Hey, Saja?
Yes?
Would you please come down here a moment, sweetie? I wanted to ask you a quick question. Saja just turned 8, by the way. The Bill of Rights.
Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of...
Stop. Regurgitating memorized amendments isn't what I'm asking for. Just tell me something about it in your own words.
It's not the Bill of Rights. We'd be more like China. Here, at least, we don't have warrantless searches. We have free speech. Citizens are protected from cruel and unusual punishments.
That's enough.
Are protected...
Wait a minute. Saja, how would you characterize the 2010 Supreme Court decision on Citizens United?
Corporations have the same rights as people, so there's no spending limit on candidates. Which means a country is ruled by corporations and their lobbies to fund candidates and command their fealty by demanding...
Jesus Christ. You made your point. We get it. It's very impressive.
Wow.
So I don't actually get to see the video. It just freezes from my end, but because I've seen it many times, I just want to speak about the end bit. Now, she talks about how the country is run by corporations, right? So this is kind of just showing you that they've been telling us this whole time. They've been putting it in our faces, but we don't want to see it, right? So the next video is a really good one. This is one of the ones I never forgot. When I first saw this stayed in me, and I'm like, why are they saying it like that? And it never left me. And so when I found this, I'm like, oh, perfect. This is going to back it up. So this is the movie Killing Them Softly, guys, if anyone remembers that. There's a moment where Obama's on the television and he starts talking about, America as a nation. So if you got this one ready, Carl, this is another one that they've been telling us what's truly been in play the whole time. And so you see how they gaslight us by telling us what they're doing, but saying it's only someone who has, conspiracy ideas that believes this stuff, but they're still putting that information out there, right? So they're still penetrating your consciousness with it. And it's that old tactic that once something is said, it cannot be unsaid. So that's how they do it. That's psychological programming. You might claim that someone's a rapist, right? And that's in play now. It might not be verified, but there's still going to be that stain in your mind that's what people are going to attach to that individual now. They're always going to have that knowledge, that maybe they are. Who's to know? That suspicion is there. So that's what they've been doing. That's how they've been programming. So is that video good to go?
Yep, absolutely. Here we go.
You hear that line? Line's for you. It will make me laugh. For one people. It's a myth created by Thomas Jefferson. Now you never go with Jefferson, huh? My friend Jefferson is an American saint because he wrote the words, all men are created equal. Words he clearly didn't believe since he allowed his own children to live in slavery. He's a rich wine snob who's sick of paying taxes to the Brits. So yeah, he wrote some lovely words and aroused the rabble, and they went out and died for those words. And he sat back and drank his wine and fucked his slave girl. This guy wants to tell me we're living in a community. Don't make me laugh. I'm living in America. And in America, you're on your own. America's not a country. It's just a business. Now fucking pay me.
Well, that certainly gets the point home.
So, like I said, they've been telling us this whole time what's really in play. And so this article is doing the same, but it's obviously framing it in a way that if you believe this, there's something mental about you, right? So that's the way they do it. They want to throw you off the scent. They want to dissuade you from looking at it seriously. That's their whole system. If you understand how Satanism works, they never conceal the information, like totally hide it. They always put it there, but it's the way that they actually frame it that gets you to see it in a way that it's not of any relevance or significance. That's the way they do what they do. And so just sort of show some examples. So if we can go back to that article and scroll down to where you've got the ASIO chief. They say it. The words domestic terrorist appear in that article. So they're actually, people have asked me before, how do I know sovereign citizen means domestic terrorist? Well, here's your proof, guys, because it's in this article. So you should be able to see them a little bit lower. I think it's under his picture. Is that where it's under?
Yeah, Mike Burgess, the ASIO Director General, mentioned the risk of sovereign extremists in his 22 threat assessment. In some of the alleged violent acts at the recent Old Parliament House protest are a case in point. The individuals involved were driven by a diverse range of grievances, including anti-vax agendas, conspiracy theories, and anti-government sovereign citizen beliefs. Burgess isn't the only top intelligence official to warn of the dangers of such beliefs. Back in 2011, the FBI's counter-terrorism and analysis section stated it considers sovereign citizen extremists as comprising a domestic terrorist movement, and it remains a serious issue today.
So there you have it, guys. If you thought I was making it up, it's right there in black and white. It's just a euphemism for domestic terrorists, right? This is how they're going to set it up so that, they can have the garnering violence as the thing that the people want to support against anyone who actually stands on principle. But they'll put it in a way, because look how they define it. If you look at the way that they define it, they say, oh yeah, these sovereign citizens, they think they're above the law and they get to pick and choose what they want to participate in and not. But while at the same time they're using all our resources, they'll still kind of go and use the things that our taxes pay for. They'll go use our hospitals, yada yada, blah blah blah. Right? They'll just say that. So the way that it's phrased is that that people who are in whatever that actually really means, that they're like full selfish, all about getting what they want for themselves, right? So it's a full projection on the actual structure and the people who are in that private club of what they're doing. They project it out onto these people who actually want to stand on principle. It's a conversion the whole time. So I thought it'd be really good now to go to the PowerPoint slide and actually define sovereign citizen. So people who, if they don't know what it is, we can show them the actual two meanings. The two words is totally separate in opposition to one another. So if you've got that PowerPoint ready to go, it should be the first slide in there.
I'm just trying to bring it up. Here we go. Okay. Bingo. Everybody see that okay? No, it's a bit big.
There you go.
There you go. So this is the definition we're all chasing. Sovereign, derived from the Latin adverb super and the Latin noun regnum, meaning rulership or control. Sovereign means one who is above the rulership or control of another. Hence, a subject or a subject, not a slave. I think not or a.
Yeah, I think that should be not a subject or a slave.
Yeah, not a subject or a slave. Citizen comes from city, which equals municipal, and the word zen, or servant. Citizen is a public servant, a slave to the corporation to which it pledges. Does not have rights. A citizen only has privileges which are given to it by the corporation to which it pledges. Servant of a fictional invention known as the municipality. Now, Fitz, where people are coming up in opposition to this, they're saying a slave to the corporation to which it pledges. And these people are saying, but I never pledged to any corporation. I haven't pledged anything. I'm just a good citizen. I haven't pledged anything to do anything for anyone. This is where your straw man comes in, your birth certificate, yes?
Yeah, it's done without your knowledge. So, they've got their structure. Of course, they're not going to tell you that they're doing it, because if they did, no one would accept it. So, it's just done by deception. That's what's called constructive fraud. And that's what they're running. So that's the way they do it. As long as they can justify it in their actual belief structure, their ancient ritualistic superstition, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to satisfy anything that bears resemblance to reality. That's irrelevant, because they've got their own private club that runs it their way. So that's all that matters. So now we should be up to, is it video time now?
Oh, yes. Hang on a minute.
So this appeared on the Today Show, guys. I think it was the morning show. I don't know. I don't watch it. It just got sent to me. And then when I saw it, I thought, oh, perfect. So what I'd like to do, because it's not going to play on mine, is when the magistrate says that there's a spectrum, and he goes from saying that there's people who, at the lower end, where just want to challenge old doctrine, and that's probably a good thing. And then he says, and then there's the other side of the spectrum where people, they profit from it. They create kits on the internet and sell it. So I just want to get to that point, and if we can stop it there, I wanted to talk about that.
I can't stop it the way this is playing. It'll just play all the way through. Yep.
Right. Well, I do want to focus on that one anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go.
In them online, they call themselves sovereign citizens, political activists wreaking havoc across Australia, refusing to comply with government officials, including the police, deciding which laws they want to obey and which ones to ignore.
We don't provide details, you will be arrested.
We don't have to give you any details.
Not in your jurisdiction. We'll break the window.
There is, and you will commit offence, you'll be liable for it. It is absolutely trespass. You got no jurisdiction here, bros. Because if you touch this car, you're committing an offence. You're committing offence by standing here. Yes, you are. You don't have any jurisdiction on this land. Oh, look out.
You're under arrest.
Yikes. That conversation.
That was one of these incidents that brought this to our national attention. And to learn more about this controversial group, we're joined by the Dean of Law at Southern Cross University, David Halpin. David, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. This movement has really gained attention recently after some shocking confrontations like the one we just saw. Can you firstly explain for us, what is a sovereign citizen exactly?
There's a spectrum. On the one hand, there are those who just want to challenge the law by raising old common law doctrines and concepts of sovereignty, and that's probably a positive thing. But at the other end, there are those who simply refuse to comply with laws that apply to you and I. They see themselves as separate and different. They say that they don't consent to the jurisdiction, and by their own declaration, they're not bound by laws. So at that more extreme end, of course, that can end up being pretty dangerous, as we see in the video, but also the connections between those involved with the sovereign citizen or pseudo-law movement and horrible incidents like the one we saw in Queensland involving police late last year.
Yeah, and that's where the extremities of this go to. But I guess what a lot of us are thinking when we watch this, what actual rights, David, do they have? Do they have any rights to say, no, you can't do this, you are trespassing into my car?
Well, that's the bizarre thing, really, is that they obviously believe that they are sovereign citizens, that the laws don't apply to them, that their own car is their little separate country or something along those lines. But it holds absolutely no weight, as we see not only by the police actions, but also by what happens when it eventually gets to court. I was a magistrate for 22 years, and I saw a lot of the sovereign citizens' arguments, and they hold no weight whatsoever. It's legal gobbledygook.
So nobody has ever successfully argued the sovereign citizen case in court, to your knowledge?
Not in New South Wales, not in Australia, and it's given very short shrift throughout the world. It really started as a movement in the United States, and again, there is just universal rejection by every level of court.
So why do you think it is that we're seeing more and more people claiming this so-called right of sovereign citizenship? What's stirring this up in Australia?
There's a few things. Firstly, there's a very slick and profit-making marketing campaign by those who sell this dream by selling sovereignty kits and beat your speeding and registration fine by buying this specialised legal information that can get you off. So they are promoting it and profiting from it. The second thing is I think that it's fair to say that one of the results of COVID was a disillusionment by a significant proportion of the public with government, with health, with law, with their connection with society, and they've gone looking elsewhere for justification for their views of these laws don't apply to me. So I think those two things are causing growth.
All right, David, we really do appreciate your insight into this. Thank you so much for your time.
Sorry, mate. Come back right when I've got the sneezes.
So obviously that all froze for me, so I didn't hear it. But luckily, I've heard it 100 times.
So I noticed that his body language is more telling than the words coming out of his mouth. You get more out of how he's saying these things. He has no belief in the words he's telling you. He's drawing from pure fantasy. If you watch him, he raises his eyes, looks straight up. That means he's drawing from not his deep memory. He's making a story up to try and keep you convinced.
Yeah, I'm so pleased you spotted that. He also grabbed his ear as well.
Yeah, the ear tweak.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, it's all his conscience. This is what people think, that criminals don't have a conscience. They do. There's your evidence, right?
Alan Pease and I used to be mates years ago. I haven't spoken to him in a few years, and I think he's retired these days. But I might see if I can make contact with him, and we might line up a few of these people, so a few of these interview points, and get him to go through the body language if he would be up for it. I don't know that he is, but I know how to get a hold of him. He lives on the Sunshine Coast, so I'll see whether or not he's up for it.
Yeah, I do remember him. He was quite enjoyable to watch. So yeah, that'd be a great experiment just to see what he comes out with. So what I did want to go to is, if you look at how he phrased it at the beginning, right? He says these political, straight off the bat, right? These are political activists. What's an activist, right? That's someone who's all about themselves, right? That's what that means. So now all of a sudden they're political activists, self-interested, just get what I want for me. And then he says they're wreaking havoc across Australia, right? So who do you actually see physically with your eyes? Who do you actually see creating the violence? Is it these so-called sovereign citizens that are sitting in the car? Did they smash anything? Did they grab anybody? Or was it the actual policy enforcement agent that did it? And so they're telling you the opposite of what's actually happening. And when you believe in the narrative, somehow your mind can actually see that which isn't there.
Yeah.
It's an amazing mind trick. It's phenomenal. And so why I'm saying that is, I actually did a post about this on my Facebook channel on Soundbite University, and it blew up. It's up at like 25,000 views. It's insane.
Wow.
No one actually cares about the stuff I do, really. They just send a few here and there. It's like over 700 shares. It's gone into all these people's feeds that I don't know anything about, who've come in, and they're telling you the opposite of what's in that video, right? They're saying that violence is all committed by these people. And you're like, geez, how do you actually see that, right? So this is the power of mind control. Right, this is how well it's done. So they're being imprinted with these beliefs as soon as they start speaking, and because they trust these people, right, it can't be anything different. And so the only thing here that's the problem with the actual people in the vehicle is that they're actually being antagonistic, and they're challenging their on jurisdiction. The problem with that is that you are giving your power over to them, because as soon as they have you as belligerent, that's it. You're done. They've got license for violence. Their corporate policy speaks about that. Right, so you've dropped right into that zone that says you're belligerent, and they're going after you. And so this is the problem, right? If you start going antagonistic at them, you've invited violence. And this is the problem that a lot of people are doing, because they get emotionally charged, which is understandable because they're being violated. Yet the most difficult thing is to stay calm in that moment and actually speak from a position of where you're trying to get them to prove they have authority. Yeah. And it's an entirely different outcome when you do that. because there's a certain level of standards, which is said in the opener, the government is bound to, right? And any employee of government is bound to those standards. And unless you can actually articulate that, they'll just go run roughshod over you. And so we're going to get into that a bit later. But I did want to go back to when he said sovereign citizens are on a spectrum, right? And so that at the lower end, they challenge the law and common law doctrines. He's talking about 1215 Magna Carta right there, right? He said common law doctrines, right? But he doesn't say the word. And then he says it's probably a positive thing. And then he talks about the other side, right? And that's the ones who go full tilt and they start making a profit of that. Now, here's the thing about how the cult works, the dark occult, is that they actually respect people who stand on principle. They'll still come after you, but they won't come after you to really like extreme levels. But if you actually try and use their system to get some advantage for yourself, that's when you're done. That's when they really go after you, like full tilt. And that's what that whole sovereign citizen is. That's code for you are using our system to beat us, and we can't have that. So now you're going to pay the ultimate price. So all the people that are using that ecclesiastical stuff, the trust laws, the PMAs, the promissory notes, you are all setting it up so all of us are going to suck it, right? If we don't stand on principle and that which is universally discoverable, right, that's why we're getting done like this. So we can't afford to say, oh, well, I can do it any way I like. Yeah, but guess what? All of us get to pay for it that way. So, you know, do you want to be responsible for that? That's the question you need to ask yourself. You know, and the very few people are understanding that. So this is the thing that we really need to understand. And I've got some videos lined up, guys. So whoever earlier spoke about Will Keats, you're going to be really happy you stuck around.
Yeah, absolutely.
His work and Neil Oliver's has gone viral. The word is getting out, guys. So we're going to get into that very soon. But I just wanted to raise that point.
And hopefully we'll get Will back on the show again soon, and maybe even Neil if we can swing it.
That'd be wonderful. So basically look at it like this, guys. If there's a raging fire coming at your house, right, is the best method to use a flamethrower to extinguish it? Is that what's going to do that? That's a symbolic way of understanding what you're doing when you use their system to try and get yourself free out of it.
Yep.
That's why this whole sovereign citizen thing started, right? They needed some tarnish people who were going to try and personally profit, you know, with the promissory notes and etc. They can't have you doing that. So I don't think we're doing the slides yet. I think we're going to.
I thought we were back at the attorney. I beg your pardon.
I think we're going to. Oh no, yeah, it is the defining the attorney. You're right. I've just got to look at my show notes here too. So a lot of people talk about lawyers, and he was talking about that, you know, like the legal system and lawyers, etc. Well, so it's really important to understand what the definition of an actual attorney is and the history of how they came about. So that slide you had a moment ago, that will.
Oh yeah, I know, but that was a moment ago.
It's gone a wandering.
Now it's gone a wandering. Yeah. So hang on, I'm going to remove that. Add that. Share this. That one. Bingo.
So anyone who doesn't know what attorney is, here's the history of where that came from.
So, acknowledging a new lord or transferring homage and fealty to the purchaser of an estate. Bar attorneys have been attorneying ever since they were founded at the Temple Church by acknowledging that the crown and he who holds the crown is the new lord of the land. Because King John defaulted on the 1213 contract, the new crown, the Crown Temple, has had to have a new lord, the Pope and his Roman Church.
And so there's one more that I grabbed actually from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, just so it's not me making this up, guys. You can discover this for yourself. The word attorn, that's where the word attorney comes from. And you'll see that it backs up what was just written a moment ago.
To agree to be the tenant of a new landlord or owner of the same property.
And then you've got the etymological understanding of it. I think it comes from Anglo-French.
Anglo-French attorner, to transfer allegiance of a tenant or land or other lord, from Old French attorna, or turn to, arrange, from a to plus torna to turn. I don't know what the hell that means, but
so
yes.
Basically, if you get yourself an attorney at law, you are getting someone who's turning you over as you are property. That's what, you know, that's their job, is to turn you over as property to, you know, the Bar Temple,
Yeah.
the Crown Temple, right? That's what's happening. And so all these people that believe that, you know, a lawyer knows what law is and stuff like that, this is, you know, just some stuff you can discover for yourself, guys. You know, I constantly get accused of these are my beliefs. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yet, you know, everything I put up, there's a way to verify that this exists somewhere else out of my mind. You know, that's why I'm always giving you evidence, guys. I'm not just saying things because I like the sound of my voice. There's something here that's for people to discover. But yeah, I can't wait for all the self-haters to come in and say that I've made this up as well. So I think we've got now a series of...
we've got the process service first up.
Yeah, so this is one we've played before, but I really want to play it again just because I did make that point about, you know, if you use principle, you get a different outcome. And that's what this video was about. So just to give you guys a different perspective, those other people in the car, they didn't stand on principle, right? They tried to use their own system against them and they got violence. But this one will show you the different outcome. And so, you know, we played it before, but now in this context, hopefully you'll be able to see that they at least respect when you understand what you're actually doing as far as standing on principle. And that shows you they won't treat you the same. They'll treat you different.
All right, here we go.
Identify yourself.
Police station.
So that's
exactly right. What's your name, sir?
What's your name?
And you're a sovereign citizen, sir, are you?
So you're making accusations, are you?
No, I'm not making accusations. I'm here to serve some court documents.
So let's just see if you're standing on your oath of office of constable today.
Pardon me?
Are you standing on your oath of office of constable?
Which is what?
You don't know what that is? Are you a public servant?
Of course I'm a public servant.
Okay, so a public servant needs to stand on the oath of office of constable. Is that you? Are you standing on your oath of office of constable?
I am, yes.
You are? Perfect. Let's see. We're about to find out. Here we go. Here we go. Where are you going? Stay here.
I'm not here to answer any of your questions.
No, you're not going to answer it. You're actually going to be on camera, walking away, proving you're not a holder of constable, that you're actually a private corporate policy enforcement agent.
We'll get these served by the courts.
I must caution you where I stand under Article 6. Where are you going?
So,
where are you going?
Yeah. The funny part is that, you know, ever since that Ben Fordham show, right, that word cooker's just exploded in the minds of, just like Karen. Remember when Karen just got exploded into, well, now cooker's the new Karen. And someone's in the chat, yipping out cooker now. So it's quite funny how they get taught what to think and how to, you know, what the truth is, and they just go and spit it out verbatim.
I don't know if you're aware, but I did a show prior to this show, and Cooker Watch was in there, and I invited her to come into this show with us and learn about sovereign and citizen. But not only has she declined that offer, she has deleted her email address, so I can't talk to her or send her the link anyway. That gives you an idea of just what level of understanding Cooker Watch wants to have about sovereign and citizen. It might tell you that they have no interest at all in learning about this because they want to fan the flame of sovereign citizen, which, you know, as Fitz has said, is how they're looking to brand people like us going forward, completely erroneously. And, well, it's not too unexpected to find a bunch of morons trying to make an oxymoron and stick it on us. It's not too hard to believe, is it, Fitz?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. See, when people start actually splitting and categorizing people, because that's them just repeating their trauma of what got done to them. This is the only way they know how to interact in the world, you know. So they've been taught that they're, you know, if they don't conform with someone else's who's got more power than them, they're going to suffer. So then you've got the choice. You either conform with it, and then you make others suffer who don't, or you get to suck eggs even more. So they've chosen the one, I'll just conform where it's safer for me. And this is just the natural outcome of that. So now, hopefully we can move to the actual videos. This is Will. He did an interview with Richard Vobes. Brilliant. I've cut it up into segments because it's far too long. So I've just snipped it into 1 or 2 minute bits. And this is what they're terrified of, guys. They don't want you to know this knowledge, right? So all the people who are claiming that we're cookers, I'd love you to address all the points that are raised in here and actually answer back, because, you know, this is gold, guys. So I hope you really enjoy it and you find value out of it. And the other thing is, you can look it up on YouTube. It's got up to 170 views in about 3 days, guys. 170,000.
170,000. Yeah.
170,000. Sorry. And then the Neil Oliver one's right up there as well, and that's at the end. But we'll go through these piece by piece.
All right, here we go.
Actually, what I might do, I'll just read this to you, actually, which is quite interesting. This comes from Lysander Spooner, an essay on the Constitution that he wrote in 1852. He was an American lawyer, but the United States system of constitutional law actually functions on the same framework, on the same foundation, and he expresses it beautifully. So the authority to judge what are the powers of the government and what are the liberties of the people must necessarily be vested in one or other of the parties themselves, the government or the people, because there is no third party to whom it can be entrusted. If the authority be invested in the government is absolute, and the people have no liberties, except such as the government sees fit to indulge them with. If, on the other hand, that authority be vested in the people, then the people have all liberties, as against the government, except such as substantially the whole people through the jury choose to disclaim, and the government can exercise no power except such as substantially the whole people through the jury consent that it may exercise.
Wow.
So he's saying it's one or the other. You can't have a middle position here.
And that makes, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because, as you said, there's no extra, or as he said, there's no third party. So which way does it go? And it seems to make complete sense when you've read it in that very concise statement that it has to be the people, because the people put the government there to begin with.
Yes.
There you go.
So again, it freezes for me, so I didn't get to see it, but I'm going to go by what I remember. And so it's about there's only two ways it can run. Either government has all the authority, to decide what is law, or the people do. There's no third option. So if it's the government, we have a dictatorship. If it's the people, then we have democracy. It's real simple. How many of these people that scream cooker actually know that? So all the ones that like to scream out cooker, right? Just see if you can answer that question. Do you prefer to live under a government dictatorship where you don't actually have any say in the decisions that affect your daily life? Is that the way you like to live? And so that's what you're coming to support every time you scream out sovereign citizen. So is that in alignment with your moral compass? Let's just ask you that.
And if you are a cooker, can you spell it? That's my next question. Anyway, that's probably a question for another time.
So, we can go to the next one because we've got a few to get through.
We do. So this is all about statutes.
And it seems to make complete sense when you've read it in that very concise statement that it has to be the people, because the people put the government there to begin with.
Yes.
They couldn't suddenly usurp the power by going, oh, right, okay, thanks very much. We're now established. Goodbye, you. Because the people wouldn't have permitted that.
Yes, exactly right. And of course, that means actually that there is a framework of limitation that is placed not only the government itself, but its lawmaking powers as well.
Right.
So Parliament itself can write legislation, but all legislation, all statutory law must be in alignment with constitutional law so that it's not infringing on the liberties of the people. Now, contrary to that, they actually claim, and this is really through ignorance, I think.
Right. Yes.
On the Parliament website, they actually claim that Parliament is sovereign. I mean, it's
right. So that's worrying,
really
isn't it?
Quite astounding.
Yes. Because if they believe that and they want to, and we say, hang on a minute, no, you're not, and they say, well, we are, and we control the police and the army, and so you're going to do what we say, otherwise you've had it.
Yes.
Then we're in a very difficult place, aren't we? Because effectively they are then saying we are dictators.
Correct. Exactly it. And so they're able to get away with it because we've allowed this to go so far. That's the problem.
Yes.
And specifically in what sense? I mean, if you think about us, and by the way, this is very much my ultimate message, is that constitutional law, I actually think is the only solution left, and it's the one we should have engaged with months ago, if not years ago, really. But it seems to be being ignored. and because people have this sense that it's a bit nebulous, it's a bit difficult to get a handle on it. It's not actually. It's really quite straightforward. And I'll give you a source for where all of this is consolidated, this information at the end.
Well, I was going to say, because the Americans have their Bill of Rights, don't they, which they turn to all the time. Whereas we don't have it on a written piece of paper. That's what I was trying to sort of say in my video the other day. It's not
well, we do actually.
We do in one place.
Fact, yes, and actually, the more you look into the Constitution, the more you realise that not only, because some people claim, of course, that it's written in lots of different places on lots of different documents.
Yes,
and that's actually not the case. It's written really in one document, actually, and that's the 1215, the original 1215 Magna Carta. Because Magna Carta, the Great Charter, was not legislation. That's the key. Yes, it was prior to Parliament, but that's not really the reason.
Right.
Because prior to Parliament, the King could create legislation and statutes, and did so, in fact. The real reason why 1215 Magna Carta, the Great Charter, which is still binding, by the way, on the government, the reason why that is the constitutional document is because it wasn't legislation. It was a promise. And I see it really as a one-sided promise. It's not a contract as such, I don't think, with the people. You can't have the people signing it. That's not what it's doing. It's basically leaving the people in a way to be anarchists, in a sense. And I mean the true meaning of anarchists, not hurling things around the street and burning things down.
Not thugs.
It leaves them to be self-masters, essentially. And the government to get out of the way and leave them alone. And there are very few systems of governance of a state in the world that have ever existed. Only this one, in fact. And you'll see why in a minute, why it elevates the people above their own government. Okay, not in the ways that we think we've been told that it works through voting, but this other concealed mechanism that I better get onto right now.
Explanation from Will, just brilliant. Yeah.
So, do you remember when John Wilson said he just wants to be left the F alone, and then we started that Leave Me the F Alone party? Well, this is why I've been trying to get John to understand this. You know, that this is how you get left alone, John. Like, he got explained to you right there. You know, so the MC 1215, the Magna Carta 1215, is still as binding on government as then as it is now, because it's a one-sided promise. It's not a contract because we didn't sign it. It's a promise that men with honour who come to stand in a position where they're going to be in service to the people are standing there with honour saying, this is what I promised to do in order to have your authority. That's what it really is. And if we don't have that as our standard, then what have we got? We've got dictatorship. You know, if we don't have that in our knowledge centre, right, all these people who scream cooker are going to start saying we're all crazy because they don't understand principle. You know, they've been so traumatized by their experience, all they can do is keep activating that trauma. That's as far as their consciousness allows them. And so everyone else who can see past that and rise above that can understand this information, and it's not going to take much for them to get it. And it's just about more and more people getting it. That's all we're waiting for. So we've got another one.
True. All right. Yep, into the next one.
Authentic common law, this one is.
When you codify, you're talking about statutes and legislation and all of that, which is what we have, and we seem to be having tons and tons of that all the time.
Huge amounts, absolutely vast, and most of it, by the way, wouldn't be able to be on the statute books if you had full jury independence working, and they were being informed. See, now that's something I haven't mentioned is that the power of the jury to judge independently of the legislation is they are not being informed of that. Hence, in America, for example, why there's an organization called the Fully Informed Jury Association, FIJA. Now, there isn't anything over here. And we've got this double thing in the judiciary at the moment where it's almost like they're frightened to tell the people that they have the power to do this. Because if we did, there would be anarchy. And the irony of that statement is simply breathtaking. I mean, because they don't really understand what do you mean by anarchy in that context?
Yes.
It's just,
Yes.
So you've got a kind of double think going on. That's the key. And then not informing people of that power and that right to judge on the law as well.
But it's not that they're just confused.
Yeah, I can see where that's going. It's not that they're just confused. Yeah, good point. Very good point.
So, it's about, if you really want to heal as a nation, how can it be done? Like these mechanisms are deliberately built into common law so people can heal, so they can face their shadows, right? There's no other way to do it. So all these people who are, sitting there screaming, cooker and all that kind of stuff, here's your opportunity to heal from your trauma, right? To see the other in yourself. There's no other way it can be done other than when you're directly responsible to what's going to happen to the one that's in front of you, who's one of your community members, someone that you live with, right? There's no better way for that to happen until you understand the full consequences of the choices you're about to make. And because if you make those choices based on prejudice, then you understand that prejudice is going to come back on you. And just like karma works that way, whatever you put out, you get back. And so that's going to inspire you to really think deeply about what you're about to do. And so that's a deliberate mechanism for how we can heal. And the word anarchy, just before you goes flip your lids, an means absence. Archy comes from archon, which means ruler. So it means absence of rulers. What you've been told it means is absence of rules on purpose, again. So before you start screaming that anarchy means chaos and violence, etc., that's what the police do, right? We, the peaceful people, we are actually, talking about having an absence of anyone ruling our lives, that we are our own masters. And you cannot practice self-mastery until you have a trial by jury that judges the fairness of government legislation. Because if they're going to be the punishers of their own legislation, you have dictatorship. And that's what we've been having for hundreds of years, if not thousands.
I think they're practicing something else with self that starts with M, mate, but mastery isn't the word.
No.
Let's have a look at morality and freedom. That's going to be an interesting bit.
Just one or two things to clarify there is that under authentic common law, the jury is supposed to be able to judge on everything of the case. The admissibility of facts, the admissibility of evidence, I should say, the facts, the law itself, and even the punishment as well.
Oh, really?
Yes, all aspects of the case were judged by the jury.
Because you often hear the jury say things like, "We recommend clemency," or "We recommend this, that, and the other," don't we? But the sentencing goes to the judge.
Yes.
That
film that you were referencing there, 12 Angry Men. Now, the interesting thing about 12 Angry Men is what it's really good for. And by the way, viewers of the Richard Vogue channel, of which I am one of them, by the way.
Thank you very much.
You really should watch that. Go and find 12 Angry Men and watch it, because it's just amazing.
Yes.
And the reason why it's amazing is actually not because of the technicalities of what happens in court, because they've actually got a lot of things wrong, which I'll tell you in a minute.
Oh, right.
But the reason why it's powerful is because of the healing process of being on the jury. The fact that you are facing your shadow, that you are facing your prejudices, and that in fact this is actually a process of communicating with natural law through your conscience, essentially.
Yes.
That's how these common law systems are based on natural law, which is an inbuilt knowing about our morality, our absolute morality that's built into the universe. And it's through our conscience that we do that. And this is really deep stuff, because actually enacting our constitution isn't just about pushing back on the conspiracists and dealing with our immediate issues. It's not really that. If you're going to take on this final solution, which I think, frankly, is the only solution, you're taking on the whole package here. Yeah, this isn't just about dealing with your immediate issues. You're going to have to face and learn some really key stuff here, because actually, the more we hold our constitution and own it, the more we raise our consciousness, because those mechanisms are deliberately built to do that. Yeah, so being on a jury is actually doing that. It's getting you to face all kinds of things of your own.
Yes.
And in fact, actually, there are one or two. I could read this out. Actually, it'd be quite interesting. Well, first of all, the jury with the judges of both the law and the fact. Okay, so here's an interesting quote from Gilbert's History of the Common Pleas, so going back a bit. No cause of consequence was determined without the king's writ. For even in the county courts of the debts which were above 40 shillings, there issued a justices or commission to the sheriff to enable him to hold such a plea, where the suitors, the jurors, are judges of the law and fact. Very key.
Yeah.
And then this one, interesting. Alexis de Tocqueville described the jury as a political institution embodying the sovereignty of the people and the very best way of preparing a people to be free. See, there's the learning aspect in it.
Right.
And actually, you know, there's been a load of research into this, that actually being on a jury has a deep psychological and emotional effect on people, a cleansing, and it causes people to go through all kinds of shadow work, and you know, and that's what was going on in 12 Angry Men, as you were pointing out.
Yeah, right.
So that one I love because, you know, it's that whole thing that if we actually allow the people to know that they actually have this independence from government to judge the law, we might actually have anarchy, and we can't have freedom. That would be terrible. So that, you know, this is the double think that's going on, right? They're terrified of the people being free to be the arbiters of what they consider to be fair and just, because they're the ones who are going to have to suck the eggs. You know what I mean?
Well,
so
the people just might
want
consider that the bureaucrats are not fair and just, and haven't been for a long time.
So, you know, I'm looking at the discussion in the comments, and it's not really showing that people understand the power of what information is being shared here. So to me, it seems like you guys are going to have to go back and rewatch it and really focus on what you're hearing and use your understanding of it through your imagination. You have to picture something that doesn't exist in today's world. You're going to have to require to go into that to understand what's being said here. So most people judge this on how they see behavior today. No one's lived in this structure of a jury before. So you guys are having a mental exercise based on what you know, how the system runs now. It's got nothing to do with that. So you're going to be required to go somewhere you've never been before. And you have imagination, guys, so you can apply it if you choose.
All right, let's have a look at the next one.
Way that they can implement these statutes and laws, which obviously isn't going to be beneficial for the people, and forevermore treats us like cattle or sheep to be penned and moved how they want, and restricting all our liberties, which clearly we should be able to revoke and rebut.
Absolutely, but so there are a number of important issues there, because I think that what's really happening is this global to local thing.
Right.
So they're trying to inject these rather globalist policies into our system by bypassing our traditional governmental mechanisms, because the people who are doing this behind the scenes, they don't like national governments. And what they really don't like is constitutions. They don't like national constitutions. That's why I've been trying to say for quite a long time that people who are awake to this, you really need to be arguing this from the position of constitutional law, the foundation of constitutional law. Stop talking about common law in relation to other weird systems that they've conjured up, because that's not going to do you any favors. You really need to hold the government's feet to the fire through the systems that we have, because by not using them and embracing them, we've lost control.
Yes.
And I think that we're running out of time. I think we've got time. If the
that's
people
encouraging.
Who are, I think we do. But I don't think we've got a lot of time left. I really do think we're in the last chance saloon, actually, on this one.
Okay.
I think that if the people who are awake and aware don't start standing on their constitution and understand it and embrace it, and start holding the government's feet to the fire through the mechanisms that they know they're meant to be bound by, I think we could make some serious progress with this.
I think we could make some very serious progress with this if the people could step up. I agree.
So this is what I've been saying since day one, right? So now it's starting to get echoed by other people and who are getting a lot of views, guys. So this is your opportunity, who's watching this, right, to actually stand in your power and start taking action. You know, those people who believe the lawful notice process is a waste of time, they haven't understood its purpose. They've come into it believing that they should get a win right now. Well, that is an immoral thing to do, is to just do something to get something back. That's not what this process is for. This is about standing on principle. So you hold the line, right? You are holding the line so others can understand what principle is. You need to show them the example, not because you want to get something for yourself, but because that's the only way that things can change is through principle, right? So when you hold that principle, you are issuing the lawful notices because at some point the jury is going to need evidence of the crimes of the people who have been transgressing against you. And that's when that comes into effect. So anyone who hasn't understood that, right, they've gone into their own desires for self-indulgence and getting a win. It's never been about that. And it's never been explained any differently than that. And so that's what that's for. So what he actually talks about is the whole thing about globalism, right? Everyone's terrified of globalism, but what are they using? They're using globalist strategies, right? They're using the fake common law structure, the UCC, the ecclesiastical trust, equity law, you know, all this admiralty stuff, legislation. This is all globalist, you know, doctrine. That's what you're using. And he's explained it to you in black and white. There's only one thing they fear, and that is people's national constitutions. Australia doesn't have its own because that was a fake one. Because if we had a proper constitution, that what would have been happening is trial by jury would have been part of our daily practice. That's how you know it's not a common law constitution. And so very few people understand that. So if you're really going to measure it, right, just go, well, is there any provision for that in there? And who wrote it as well? And if you look into it, the British Parliament wrote it. So how can Parliament write a constitution? They exist because of a constitution. They can't write one. As soon as they do, they become your master. So, you know, this is really important knowledge, guys. So we've got the next one coming up as well about how people don't understand what the set of standards are to judge the limits of government. So this is a really good one too.
Yeah, Tane, I just see you've come in late. You heard the Carta was the cabal. There are 28 lessons previous to this one. Go and start at number 1 and you will learn what a piece of crap that argument is. The cabal will try and tell anybody anything. Let's get into our treasonous king video.
The number of us, sort of, bit of a think tank, really, I suppose, a bit of a...
You're the alternative to the WEF, then, are you?
There you go. Maybe that's what
we need an alternative. I think Jordan Peterson said they need an alternative. You're already doing it. So
exactly.
So there's a website.
So in a sense, what we are is a bunch of sort of slightly pompous people, academics, historians, constitutional law experts. I mean, Sandy is an expert on the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, where all those policies are coming from, the World Economic Forum.
Right.
You know, we all have our strengths, but we sit together and we kind of join all the dots and help people with campaigns and so on. But the push that we're pushing at the moment is an education campaign on constitutional law. So we've put a website together literally only about 4 weeks ago, called commonlawconstitution.org.
I'll put it in the description so people can look that up. So when you say we've got these things and we're educating ourselves, it's not that you can suddenly wave a bit of paper or point to the website when a policeman pulls you over for speeding in a 30-mile-an-hour area. It's not on that sort of basis. It's much bigger and deeper than that. It's just
it is, but I don't think it would take long, because once there is a lot of noise in society, all over social media, we've got open letters going backwards and forwards. Everybody's talking about the fact that government actually doesn't have all the power.
Yes.
And for example, the fact that King Charles actually technically can't take his coronation oath lawfully at the same time as supporting policies of the World Economic Forum. That you can't do that. It's just not constitutionally correct.
So, I mean, what happens if he does? What happens if he takes and he hasn't sort of given a rebuttal to it, or what's the word I'm looking for? A rejection. I used the word the other day. A retraction. To retract, like a great retraction.
Yes.
Retract.
You've got increased unlawfulness. They've been doing it for hundreds of years.
Yes.
Anyway, in sort of steadily increased levels, and we've got an awful lot of rowing back to do here.
Yes.
You know, but I think we could do it. I think we can do it. But it becomes very awkward for government once everybody is starting to talk about this stuff.
Yes.
And look, all you've got to do is understand the constitutional principles from that website, and there's going to be lots and lots more materials on that. So
I think that's going to prove to be a very interesting development the coming months leading up to the coronation, if it happens.
So I'm just looking at the chat in here, and someone said, stop arguing, you might learn something. I'm all for that. This is called the Learning Center, yet you see people still in their old patterns where they've got to espouse their beliefs and their opinions, and like it really has some validity in anything in truth. And the people are still behaving the same way as those very people that, call us cookers and that. Yet within your own circles, you're behaving the same way as they do to you. So just something to think about.
We might have a few cookers in tonight, mate. Just cooker watchers just between you and the gatepost. So.
Yeah, there's a good chance of that. Yet still there's people just talking about other things that have got nothing to do with the lessons that are being taught here. So, it's just really important to have a look at what we're actually doing here. Are we sitting here offering you an opportunity to espouse what you're going to do on the weekend? Because you can do that anywhere. Or is this an opportunity to learn and actually start activating from the knowledge? What are you here to do? That's what you need to ask yourself, guys. And if you're not acting in alignment with the very things you seek, what does that say about the quality of your character? That's what we need to ask ourselves.
Our final video tonight, the bit we all will always love, the power to punish.
Making this noise, and the governments are going, hang on a minute, we've been found out. They've got to change their tune, presumably. Or those parties...
it would happen naturally anyway. Right. Yeah, so once the people start informing themselves about the constitutional principles, and trial by jury starts to come back into a form in which it's actually got a bit of teeth and it starts to happen for real. There are problems about the magistrates' court, for example, because Article 39 of Magna Carta, and it's also in the statutory version, by the way, as well, that every man and woman, when before a court, must receive a trial by jury by their peers. So that's a little bit tricky, isn't it, with the magistrates' court? I mean, I'm just flagging it up,
Yeah, so you're saying that in a magistrate... I mean, I had a magistrates' court, well, not that recent now, but because of a parking offence, which actually I won, by the way, thank you very much. But that should have been trial by jury.
Yes, it should.
It shouldn't have been just the magistrate going, yeah, no, that's fine, you're off.
The magic rule, basically, is that the power to punish is only to be in the hands of the people.
Right, yes.
See, that's really key.
That's so powerful.
Yes, so a statute doesn't have the power to punish. All it does is it has the power to bring you before a court, because it's a flagging up exercise, essentially. That's really all it is.
And the court should be trialed by jury no matter what, no other circumstance. The people should be making the decision, because the ability to punish is by the people. This is really...
Before all causes, by the way, fiscal as well, money and civil cases too.
So we've got to get this...
In America, actually,
Wow, there you go.
So as he says it, right, that legislation does not have the power to punish. People are the ones who get to decide what the law is. Yeah. And so how can the government push its legislation? Well, it has to have judges in its pay. Usurp our right to judge the fairness of what they put forward. Right? So someone in here, I saw a comment saying that trial by jury is what Freemasons allow. You don't have any understanding about trial by jury, my friend. There's no judge. There's no single judge. The people are the judges. There's only a convener, and their job is to actually inform of matters of law. The jury gets to decide whether they accept it or not. That's it. There's no actual single judge. The people decide on all matters. It's all been explained right along the whole course of this presentation tonight, and you're still going on old doctrines like that don't actually exist in reality, just that have been made up by criminals. So people, if you're not here to learn, that's okay, but just don't fill up the gaps with your opinions. It's not going to work for anybody.
Fitz, I've got to get going, but we've got to address this idiot. Was doing some MC reading. What are your thoughts on Clause 54 of the Magna Carta? Prohibits any woman from accusing a man of murder or manslaughter, save in accusations that involve her husband. When we talk about Magna Carta 1215, we are not suggesting for a moment that everybody needs to go back and learn all articles and we reinstitute all of it. We are literally referring to trial by jury. Now, if you want to get bogged down in Article 54, by all means, but go and memorize Article 39, Article 41, Article 61, and Article 24. They're the ones we're particularly interested in. 24, 39, 40, and 61.
So what we're advocating for is this: what was the construction of a nation built upon? And in those common law articles, that's it right there. And that is that everybody's equal under the law, not under the legislation, but under the law. That which is neutral and does not favor anybody. That's it. It's just that simple, guys. You don't have to complicate it with anything else. And how do we run a system where everyone is equal under the law? There needs to be a way where that can happen. If you can understand that principle, that's all you need to understand. All the rest of it, you don't have to get bogged down in, because back then they were just trying to preserve their feudalistic way of living. So those things are not relevant to how we live today, guys. So you need to be able to understand how to transfer what is relevant to our lives today. Not every aspect of it. It's really, really basic. So are we going to have time for the announcements?
Yeah, let me just get back to our PowerPoint. There you go. I knew I'd find it eventually. And our announcements are, oops, that one.
That's
trial by jury. Oh, that's the list of them. So there you go.
This is the common law constitution.org website you can all go to, guys. Here's an excerpt out of that explains trial by jury. So you guys can all go look for it yourselves. You know, you can get informed as well as you want to be. It's all there for you. You can accept it or refuse it. That's your choice. But once you refuse truth, the problem is you are not going to accept the responsibility for the consequence of that refusal. Yeah. That's the tragic part. And then there's memes on there, guys, that you can download and share and send out and start, sharing it out into your, your networks and just see what happens. If we keep doing it, ask these questions, right? The law says that men and women have the right to trial by jury. So why do we have magistrates' courts? Brilliant question. Which one of those people that were on the video earlier on, especially that magistrate himself, is going to answer that question, right? This is what you need to start asking out loud.
I'd love to see how he comes up with that.
And so this is
the key to our freedom, Magna Carta 1215.
Yeah, so we've just put this out for people if they want to share it. It's in the Knowledge Centre. So if you want to have a quick read of that, Carl, out loud, so we can see what's on there.
One, an agreement that protects everyone's rights and freedoms. 2, all people are equal under the law, regardless of power and position. 3, asserts the principle of government as a system of service, not a force for control. 4, holds government accountable to the people. 5, Magna Carta 1215 is the contract that binds government to deliver a system of equity and prosperity to enhance the quality of our lives.
So this is just in the Knowledge Centre. I've put the links in for you in the private chat if you want to post it up. Same with the social proof channel.
Yep, they're in there.
And then the one below, I just wanted to go on to point number 10, because if you're going to call up the police, and there's one for courts as well, when you ask them whether they're aware of whether they're, a business, right, and they say no, it's not in the script, but I just want to put this out there, guys. If they do say they no, the next question I ask them is, would you be willing to stand before a jury of your peers under penalty of perjury and answer that question again and see what they do? So because the proof we're seeing is they're saying no, they're not aware that they are a business or a corporation. So then that's the follow-up question, guys. So you can really nail them if you really want to, guys. But what you're going to find is they don't have a clue how to answer these questions in a way. They're totally lost. They go, oh, no one's ever asked me that before. So we've got a video of, if you've got time, Carl, to play. It's about 5 minutes of Neil Oliver, and he just smashes it out of the park, guys. So this is what I'm hoping.
Don't have time tonight.
Oh, real shame about that.
If we'd have started at 7 o'clock like I tried, we would have, but I can't, mate. I'm half an hour late from somewhere I need to be.
I guess we can try it for next week.
Yep, we'll play it next week without a worry in the world. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate your efforts again tonight. Bloody great show. And I don't think there should be any issues with people understanding what a sovereign is and what a citizen is. So if you find someone like a Cooker or a Ben Fordham calling you a sovereign citizen, you should be able to put them dead straight. So let's hope so. Fitz, thanks. We'll be back again next Monday night.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone who's been listening. Look forward to seeing you next week, or hearing, or not, speaking to you next week.
Good on you, buddy. And enjoy yourself, folks. Have a great night. We'll be back with a little bit more tomorrow. Don't forget, tomorrow night, of course, the Australian Medical Professionals Against the Jab will be having a conference. You will see it all live on Voice of Freedom. I don't think you'll see it in too many other places. It's all our camera gear that's streaming it. So the Voice of Freedom Rumble channel will be the place that it's on from 7 p.m. tomorrow night. And all the senators of note will be speaking, who have raised questions in Parliament and have started inquiries and all sorts of different things. There will also be a number of professionals who have lost their jobs, amongst others, speaking as well. That's happening tomorrow. I will drop some YouTube videos tomorrow to give you a bit of an idea where, when, but 7 o'clock tomorrow night we'll get underway. Look forward to seeing you there. If you are going to be in Canberra, come up, say hi. The Galactic Larrikins will be floating around as well. You'll be able to kiss them. I know they like that. They don't mind strange men coming up and strange people coming up and kissing them. It's all good. Anyway, love your work. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!